right, so today we have Karen Campbell. She is the founder of Child Behaviour Specialists in New Zealand. And so Karen, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a New Zealander.
Oh yeah?
And I've been in the area of behaviour work in
Yep.
different capacities for over 20 years, probably more 25 years. Always been interested in that sort of area and that field. Because once you have a bit of knowledge in that area, you can make a big difference to families' lives and educators' lives as well, just by understanding about how behaviour works.
Yeah. So I'm well aware that you use positive behaviour support systems.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that, and how do you use that method to help families here in New Zealand?
Okay.
Yep.
So positive behaviour support has sort of evolved really in the last 10 years, and it's starting to sort of go into different organisations and fields, and but it's based on really good research, based on the functional behaviour analysis approach. So it relies on science,
Yep.
And that's why it's effective.
Yeah.
Because it looks at the function of the behaviour, and what I mean by that is, why is the children or why is the child behaving in such a way, and why is the behaviour continuing? Because there's always a reason that sits behind that.
Yeah.
And so it teaches us to examine behaviour with a critical lens.
Yep.
And once we do that, then we get more to being able to have accurate data to inform our decisions on how we can help children to learn positive behaviours.
Right.
Yeah.
So how would you think of New Zealand's support system here in terms of if a child gets diagnosed, what is the first step toward getting help?
So I think in New Zealand, we've got psychologists and we've got counselling and those sorts of things. Sometimes, take their children off to the GP in the initial instance, and they might refer them to a psychologist or a psychiatrist to get a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And generally what's happening in New Zealand, particularly for probably ADHD,
Oh yeah.
they might have that diagnosis, and then the psychiatrist will look at certain medications that that the family can trial, because they're not all the same, and
Yep.
Depending on the need of the child. So it's quite medical based currently in New Zealand, and so that's their approach mostly.
Right.
Is to finding the right medication as opposed to behaviour support. I think it's an area that we could possibly get better at,
Right.
because I think it's really great if parents got the tools as well as the right medication, obviously. But that combined is going to have a really good outcome.
Yep.
Where if we just focus on one area, then it's not likely to have such a good outcome for families.
What I'm hearing is that it's a lot more holistic
Yes.
if there's both the medication
Yeah.
and the tools
Yeah.
to learn how to manage the challenging behaviours.
And one of the reasons it's what happens quite often with challenging behaviour, and whether the child has ADHD or not,
Right.
behaviours can get into a pattern, and they can stay in that pattern because it's
Right.
a dynamic,
Yep.
and it's very tricky for parents to know how to get it out of that pattern into a new pattern of positive behaviour, because they're part of it.
Yep.
And so that's why it's really a critical factor to get positive behaviour happening in homes and in classrooms. Yeah. So I have a mixture of clients, but I do have quite a number of parents that may not have a diagnosis as well, but
Yep.
they're having difficulties with their children's behaviour, and they quite often voice their concerns and wondering whether they need to go down the track of diagnosing,
Right.
that sort of thing. So there's a combination of parents that seek my help, and
Yeah.
some of them are already on medication, but then that hasn't fixed the whole problem, so they're wanting to know more and understand more about how to support their children. So medication will often help with things like impulsivity and things like that, so that the child can be more regulated. But then if there's a learned behaviour pattern that has been learned, then that's not necessarily going to correct with just medication.
Yep.
And so I ask questions around the behaviour, what's occurring and why, and then figure out why it's continuing. And then we put in a behaviour plan to correct that behaviour.
Right.
So that's the sort of the missing piece of the puzzle, really. And then parents are usually very pleased with that they see that change that they didn't with just medication.
So you work primarily with the parents.
Yes.
And how do you ensure the fidelity of them carrying out the behavior
fidelity,
plans?
yeah. So that's actually a really good question, because when we're changing behaviour, it has to be done with fidelity, otherwise it's not going to work.
Yep.
And so that was something that I carefully thought about when I established my service. And so how I do that is, part of the plan is I explain the reasons why the behaviour is occurring and why it's important that we change it and how we change it. And so I also say, I give a little bit of the research in terms of, in order to change a behaviour, we have to do this and we have to do this. This is quite hard for us to do because we have to do it every single time that behaviour occurs, what we call a continuous schedule. And so I've got a script. So every time, say for example, if they're wanting their children to learn to follow instructions, they have a script to follow, so that they just follow the script, and so that ensures that they keep to the fidelity. So that's all that they have to remember in the moment. And so then it reduces their stress. They don't have to do any thinking in the moment. They just have to follow the script, and that's how it works.
How do you know that they are following the script or not?
Yeah,
Is there a way that, are you asking them to collect any data? Yeah.
So what I do is I have follow-up sessions. So once they implement the behaviour plan, then we have the follow-up sessions, and I ask certain questions in that in those sessions, and I get them to so say for example, if a child was having tantrums daily, then that would be the baseline data, and then I would ask them how many tantrums are they having, and quite often they'll say, oh, we only had one this week. So that sort of thing, so that they would you collect that sort of the data on the focus that we're sort of looking at. Generally speaking, they're very surprised at how quickly the behaviour changes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it changes pretty quickly.
Right.
And that's because it's done correctly.
Right.
Yeah, because I've stressed that in the behaviour meeting, that it's really important that we follow that process and we'll get a result. Once the parents start to see the result coming through, and the behaviour changes quite quickly, then that of course gives them the motivation and the confidence to continue.
Right.
Yeah, because we can't just say, oh, it's fixed now. We have to sustain that for a period of time.
Yeah, would you say that these strategies that you're giving to parents now can be generalized in many situations? And
oh yeah. Oh yeah, and it's because, as I said before, it's been researched for a long time, the strategies that I use. The other thing is that it's mostly positive. And sometimes parents think that they have to punish behaviour quite a lot, and it's not actually the case. Children generally respond better to positive approaches. It doesn't mean to say that it's soft approaches, because there's boundaries around it, but it works better at changing behaviour if you can target the positive behaviour that you want them to learn. So for example, if a child is having tantrums when the parent gives them an instruction because they don't want to follow it, right? So if we target the behaviour of following instructions and we reinforce that, that behaviour is incompatible with having tantrums.
Right.
Yeah. So very difficult to have a tantrum while you're following an instruction. So we make that behaviour preferable, and so quite often these unwanted behaviours go away.
Thank you for your insights. Yeah. So does your strategy work only for individuals with special needs, or can it be worked with typical children as well?
Yeah.
What are you seeing the
Yeah.
outcomes for that?
So that's a really good question. The approaches started off really probably in more clinical settings, and also with children who, you know, had different needs, particularly autism.
Right.
It's worked very, very well with that type of diagnosis. And what people have discovered over time is that they actually work for any challenging behaviour. So children don't have to have a diagnosis particularly. They just might have some challenging behaviours that are becoming disruptive in their lives, or their families' lives.
Right.
And so it's generalised into mainstream really well under the name of positive behaviour support.
Right.
And I know that quite a number of industries are starting to use that. Those techniques. For example, there's the PBS, positive behaviour support, that started I think in America, but it's in quite a few countries where whole schools are actually adopting this philosophy.
Right.
Because it works, and it can change cultures in schools if it's applied correctly. Yeah, so it generally is a really good strategy to utilise for any behaviour. Yeah.
Would there be a difference between using the PBS for a typical kid and a kid with special needs, let's say autism?
Yeah. So there probably would be a difference in terms of the amount of support that is needed. So you've got, so for example, your tier 1 support would be mostly for your mainstream kids, you know, your everyday kids going to school that might not have any challenges, particularly in neurodiversity or learning needs or things like that. And they will learn behaviours really well through that tier 1 support. There may be another tier that sits around that would be the tier 2 support, so that might be small group social teaching, that sort of thing. So they just need a little bit more to learn, you know, positive behaviours. And then there might be your tier 3 intervention, where that would be more looking at individual support. So that would be more complex children with complex needs. And it would have a team possibly that would sit around, you know, that individual of different specialists that would be able to contribute to helping that child learn new behaviours to function in life and in schools and things like that.
Right.
So that's why it's quite good. It's sort of it's across the board, because it's just looking at what the issues are. So it's investigating what actually the issues are and what supports does that child need, and that's part of the process of positive behaviour support.
How important do you think parents' involvement is in the process of the entire behaviour plan, or is it usually up to the therapist to work with the child alone?
So in the work that I do, I actually work with giving the parents the skills. Because overall, they're the ones that are going to be having the most interaction over time with their children, you know, in the weekends, holidays, evenings and things like that. So it's really, really useful for them to know what to do and how to do that. And if they do that correctly, then quite often they can take that knowledge to schools as well. And it can be generalised over into school systems. Maybe it might be a school that is not really aware of the positive behaviour support framework, but the parents then have the confidence to go to schools and say, well, this is actually what worked for my child. We saw quite a difference. So is there something that we can do in the school environment that would sort of be along those same lines? And so it's quite good in that way, because parents are then the advocate for their child, and they have the confidence then to be able to upskill you know, the teachers who are very busy, and I give them, of course, ideas on, or I'm happy to be part of those meetings as well, on how we can help schools. Schools got very often, you know, if they know it works and they want, if you're able to give it to them to know what to do,
Yep.
then they're pretty positive about that because they've been struggling themselves.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but quite often it's, as I said first, if I give the parents the tools to do it in their home environment, they do that really well. Then it can be generalised over into other environments.
What I find most challenging is parents not knowing how to generalize the skills in different situations.
Yeah.
How would you work around it?
Yeah, so sometimes parents will ask me, oh, well, how do we do, how do we go to the shops? And they're
Yep.
going to, so that's generalising into a different
Yep.
environment. So I just talk with them about how we set up the behaviour before we go. So it's the model that it's used is prevent, teach, reinforce. And so quite often we can do a lot to prevent behaviours from occurring by setting what we expect. So telling the child, this is what we're going to be doing, this is what we're going to be looking at, and this is the behaviour that we expect. Right. Knowing that they're able to do that behaviour as well because they've done it in the home environment. So it's very similar, and we're going to be once we do that, then this is going to happen. So and it's positive forecasting as well. So to, sort of giving the notion that it's going to be a positive experience. This is what we expect, and this is the reinforcement or what they're going to get when they behave well.
Right.
Yeah. So it's sort of teaching them how to do that and what the child can expect from that experience. And what I often suggest is just keep the visits to different places quite short to begin with, and then until they learn those skills in other places. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a tricky question for you, which is, what will you say to a parent who has a child that says no to everything? So let's say you ask him to do something and everything he says is no. Yeah. And refuse to do it. Yeah. What would you advise the parents to do?
Yeah. So that is a tricky situation, and it's more common than we think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the toddler age, they quite often get into that sort of pattern as well, because they're just starting to learn that they don't have to do the same thing as their parents, and they're independent of that. So so what I suggest is that parents think about what it is that they want the child to do instead of saying no. So it would be the positive opposite of that. So if they give an instruction and the child says no, what do they want the child to do? They want the child to follow the instruction.
Right.
Yeah. And so therefore we would teach that behaviour, how to follow an instruction, and reinforce it every time that behaviour occurs. And that's what we call a continuous schedule of reinforcement. And so also with the no, quite often if that's done correctly, that'll work very well. But also with the no, it's also not allowing them not to follow the instruction. Right. We have to follow through.
Right.
Yeah.
How would you reinforce it? Like, how would you help the parents to reinforce following through?
Yeah. So if they're able to follow it the first time, then they get some sort of reinforcer that the child will like, and we talk about what that child will like at that age. And so they must have it every single time. If they're still refusing, then generally what I do is I work on the principle of what we call extinction.
Okay.
So then we remove preferred activities, because quite often a child will be, doing something that they want to do. While that preferred activity, and they're still engaging in that, they're not likely to sort of all of a sudden choose to go and follow their instruction. So we have to do that in a certain way, remove the preferred activities, and also not give a lot of attention to a tantrum or no behaviour, because if we do that, that often will strengthen that behaviour, which we don't want.
Right.
But also is being very clear on, oh, Tommy's barking. Yeah. Is there somebody coming to visit? Being very clear and communicating with the child, well, okay, nothing else fun is going to happen until you follow this instruction.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where I quite often will give a script for parents to follow, because it is quite tricky.
How long does this process take usually for parents to expect a result to happen?
Yeah.
Do you
Okay, so you mean
let's say if you do the extinction behavior, so you remove the preferred activity like what you have mentioned,
yeah,
and then the child just refuse to
Yeah.
carry out the
Yeah.
instruction.
yeah, yeah,
How long should the parent wait
yeah,
before they do something about it?
yeah. So generally speaking, what can happen is one of two things.
Yep.
So a child might go into tantrum mode, and it very much depends on how strong the learned behaviour is.
Yep.
And so they may have learned that if they have a tantrum, then generally speaking, they don't have to do what they've asked. So they're quite often likely to go into that tantrum mode. And so tantrums will last a certain amount of time depending on that child. But if we don't give a lot of attention to that tantrum, then it lasts a lot. It'll become a lot shorter because there's no audience to that behaviour. Then when the child has calmed down, then the parent will go back and say, are you ready to follow the instruction now? So what that communicates is that while you have your tantrum, we can't stop you from doing that. We understand that you're disappointed or frustrated. However, that's not a reason for us not to follow the instruction. So it's done very calmly. And so generally, people in the behaviour field will know this term. It's called an extinction burst.
Right.
And it happens just before the unwanted behaviours extinguish, go away. And so that's the hardest part of it. Because that parents have to stay calm, and that we want them to stay calm in that process. Trust the process, that this is going to get better, but before it gets better, it can get a little bit worse because the child is pushing back, because they may have got what they wanted or didn't want from that behaviour before. And so that's what they're trying to push through to. But if we just remain calm, okay, there's your tantrum, right, now are you ready to follow the instruction? Not ready? Okay, well, we'll come back.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not punitive, it's not raising voices, but it's very firm in terms of this is the boundary that we have now.
What is one strategy that you give parents to calm themselves down during this extinction burst? Yeah,
so it's really probably the biggest thing is having the knowledge about how it works.
Right.
I think that's probably the best thing, because and also talking them through that and saying, I know that this is going to be uncomfortable and what they can expect. Generally speaking, they've been having a lot of those escalated behaviours anyway, and they haven't had any support. So that's preferable to them, being able to know, well, at least I know that there's going to be a positive outcome at the end of this process, because I can guarantee that if they stick to the process. So so we set up, quite often I'll set up, suggest that they set up a calm spot for the child, a calm space, have a calm box. So for little children, quite often they will follow parents. So if the parents go to the calm place and model that without giving direct attention, quite often the child will start to do that, or will calm down because they're not getting attention, but they're seeing the parent, practicing those calming strategies. So it sort of helps the parent in that moment as well. But so I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, but it is an important thing to be able to do that. And once that, extinction bursts don't last that long, generally speaking. And then once the child knows, well, this is how it's going to work, now I'm not going to get what I want from that behaviour, then the parents can sort of breathe this sigh of relief,
Right. Yeah, I see that in my own practice as well. Yeah, the extinction burst, and if the parents really just stick through it, that's when we get the results really quickly. It could literally just be the next day where we see the change. And the child just knows, like, okay, I can't get my way anymore. It's amazing how it works. It's so cool.
And also, when I do my catch-up sessions, the parents will explain, well, it's been really good, and then we had this one day, and and I ask them to go through it, and then I praise them a lot for being able to do that, because it's so difficult to manage, but they feel such an accomplishment, because then, as you say, Athena, usually the next day, it goes up on that day, and then the behaviour goes boom, like that. And it's on that, and I say, well, we're on the right track now, because we've been through that. And it gives them the confidence to be able to do that. Continue with it. So it's really great.
I love what you're saying. The confidence, right, is really just building confidence in parents, because as the child grows older, they get bigger, they get stronger, and if parents are not able to work with their child when they're little, then as they grow older, it's going to be a lot more challenging. I do feel sorry for parents. Maybe not sorry, but I can understand their struggles, because there's such a lot of information out there, Athena, and they're searching for the right answers, and they're going on, social media, but they're also reading and things like that. And not all of it's actually based on that their type of child, the type of temperament that child has, or their unique needs that they have. But also the other point is, it's not, a lot of it actually sounds very nice and sounds very good, but it actually doesn't work. And of course, when parents have tried a lot of these strategies, and by the time they reach out to my service, they've usually tried everything that they know or read, and it has failed. And so that really does knock their confidence a lot, and their ability to be able to, help their child with their behaviours. And so part of my role I see is actually, this is the stuff that works. If you follow the process, we'll be able to get a result for you. And so it's giving them that reassurance that that's, how it does work. I love the confidence in you, and I think it's also because it's the method that you are using is evidence-based, and there's a lot of power in it. Right?
That's right.
Because we're not just based on experience, but based on clinical trials, and researchers have gone through it years and years of
that's exactly right,
proving that this has been working for many different groups of different parts of the world. So there's nothing that I'll use that isn't evidence-based. Right.
All my work has to have a really good evidence base behind it. And what we mean by that, as you've said, Athena, it's been trialled in different settings of the different people, and it's got the same results time and time again to show that it has that result. And so when I talk with parents, I say to them, this isn't an approach of, oh, let's try this and see if it works. This is, if you follow this process in this situation, it will work. And we will work together to ensure that we get that results. Because I'm very invested in it, not only for my service, but I get very invested with the people and the parents that I work with, because they come to me and they're absolutely shattered sometimes, and they're tired and they're exhausted. And when they have that transformation, it's such a rewarding job that I can do, and see them change throughout that process of being able to enjoy their children more.
That is true. That is true. I feel like a lot of times when they are able to communicate with their child, I see a lot of family bond, and they're just happier in general. And
quite often when you correct the behaviour, then the relationships improve as a result of that. So I know that there's quite a bit of debate, particularly probably in New Zealand, about extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation, that we obviously we prefer, if we're all intrinsically motivated, but we're not. And children aren't, their brains aren't, fully developed. And so what we have to do is actually extrinsically motivate them, get them to a place, and then the other benefits of positive behaviour, the notion of reciprocity, where good things happen and good things happen in relationships, those things come through as a process of learning that behaviour. But if they haven't learned that behaviour to elicit that process, it's very difficult for them to experience those intrinsic motivations.
I love how you brought up the point about extrinsic motivation. A lot of times I hear parents telling me that that's equivalent to training an animal. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of based on, rewarding positive behaviour. And I guess parents might be put off by that just because the children are far more complex in lots of areas. However, we know that people, humans, and even ourselves, we respond to positive things. There's a lot of things that we do in life. As adults, we go to a job, for example, we might enjoy that work, but also we're getting paid, so that's an extrinsic motivator, isn't it? So that's a lot of the world is based on that.
Yeah, and I truly believe that most of the time, from these like reinforcements that we give to our child, we can slowly feed them to more intrinsic motivation. And that's when we start to use less and less of the external tangible rewards to something that motivates them intrinsically.
That's actually a really important point, because what I find when I'm working with parents is that quite often near the end of the the intervention phase and more into the monitoring, maintaining phase, they will say to me that their child is starting to lose interest in the rewards or the reinforcers, and that is very, very common. And I say to parents, well, one of the reasons that is because they're a lot happier. They're a lot happier that they're learning these skills, and they're getting a lot more positives from you because their behaviour is better, and so they're feeling better within themselves. And so that intrinsic motivation of being a good person, following the instruction, and mum's pleased with me or dad's pleased with me, those sorts of things. I can play with my family members because I'm not always wanting, to be first, and those sorts of things. And so they start to get an enjoyment and a sense of self-worth from that process. No child really wants to be tantruming and engaging in negative behaviour. It's just that they've got stuck and they don't know how to do it differently. So when they do learn how to do it differently, they like themselves better. And parents often will say to me, oh, my child is so much happier. And that's such a rewarding part of the process. Which they don't expect. But they don't necessarily expect that their child will be happier with these boundaries that they've put in place. But they are. And
So what will you say to parents who cannot decide whether their child is having a tantrum or having a meltdown?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's very tricky. Generally speaking, quite often if children are overtired, and especially if they're young, they will become dysregulated and physiologically, and we know that with ourselves, if we're overtired, we're more likely to behave in not such positive ways, or we might be a bit snappy. Same for children. Children, say for example, who have autism, they have quite a lot of sensory needs at times that overwhelm them, and so they become dysregulated. So that will be different than a tantrum. The main difference that I see is that with tantrums is usually they're using the behaviour to either gain something or to avoid something. Yeah. So it might be you've said no, and so then the behaviour will all of a sudden go up. All right, and it can look like dysregulation because it is quite out there. But if you gave that child what they wanted in that moment, the behaviour would go like that, right? So quite often in the simplest way, I say to the parents, generally what I find is that a child, if they are using the behaviour to get something or to avoid something, then generally we can call that a tantrum mostly. If it's dysregulation, it might be that they are really frustrated because they can't do something, or really disappointed maybe their friend can't come to play, so they're more dysregulated in that sort of sense. Those are sort of for more the mainstream, and for children with autism and things like that, there's other things that come into play around those sensory needs. And ADHD, they've got that quite often they'll have that impulsivity and that that really high energy, and so that becomes dysregulation as well. So, but the main thing too is that if there's a tantrum or an escalated behaviour or an unwanted behaviour, if the child is able to get what they want or what they don't want from that behaviour, then generally speaking, that behaviour will continue. And that will get worse over time because they have learned that that works. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Yeah. The one tip that I would probably give parents is actually to look at things with a different lens. And so looking at what your child is doing well, because what ends up happening is that with challenging behaviours, then we end up starting to focus on all the things that are wrong and the challenges, and then we're trying to correct that all the time, and then we get into this bit of a loop with it. So even if it's just start off small and just start, anytime that your child does something that is positive, to actually praise that and maybe say, oh, that's really good behaviour. You followed you did what you were told straight away. I'm going to give you a big hug for that. Or, you know, so start to focus on those positive behaviours. And what you might find is that the more positively that you can focus on more positive behaviours, the more positive behaviour that you're going to see that will start to replace the negative behaviours. I know that's hard, but even if you can do it for a short period of time in a day and just say, look, today from 12 o'clock to 12:30, I'm going to notice every positive behaviour that my child is going to do, and then just have that, and then see if there's any changes in that time, you know, that occurs in those times.
I love that. It's speaking life into your child.
Yes.
More than focusing on what's wrong with your child.
Yeah, that's right.
That's perfect. Yeah. Thank you. And so,
thank you, Athena.
Where can we find your services if parents out there want to look to get help with their child's challenging behaviours?
So thanks for asking. I actually do my work online. So I did that since COVID, and it's actually worked really well because parents are really busy. So I am at Child Behaviour Service. You can Google me and you'll find me there. On my website, you can just book a 10-minute consult to begin with. And so you just have a chat about, you know, your situation and see if I'm a good fit for you. And then from there, I take you through that process. So it's we do an assessment first. Now, I'm not actually diagnosing your child for anything. You've got lots of services that do that. What I'm interested in is assessing the behaviours that are causing you issues in the family or at school. And so I do that. And then we start off with an assessment. And at the end of that process, I've usually got a pretty good idea of what we need to do in order to help you. And then if parents wish to, they can engage in what we call a behaviour plan. So I write the plan. It'll have things in it like the script and things like that, so no thinking required. And you just follow the plan. And parents get continuously get really, really good results, and I really enjoy that process because that's what it's about. It's about being able to enjoy your children and also being giving them the skills to be able to function in life.
That's really nice. Thank you for sharing. And there's a lot of controversies around online and physical sessions. What would you say to the parents who are thinking, but I think having a physical session would be more beneficial than an online session?
So it's actually that's a good question. So generally speaking, the physical sessions are really good if you're wanting to teach if the therapist is teaching the child new skills and teaching the parent how to do that. And those might be with children with more complex needs. However, with what I do is I'm not actually working with the child directly. I'm giving the parents the understanding and the principles of positive behaviour support. So they are the people that are going to that are with their child, you know, on a daily basis. So it's really important that they have the skills to be able to do that. The child doesn't even need to know that I'm on the scene, really, because I want the parents to be the ones that are actually introducing the concept that things are going to be different, because they are the ones that are going to have to follow through, but also the children will see them as the ones with the skills, not somebody that's over here. So that's what I want for the parents. because usually by the time they've got to me, they've lost their way a wee bit because they've been trying all these different approaches. So then the child sees that, my mum and dad know exactly what to do, they're doing this, and so then that reduces the stress that the child's experiencing as well. And so that's the model that I use in terms of that. Now, for younger children, as part of the assessment, I will often ask if parents are able either to give me an audio or a video of a behaviour in play. And that gives me a good indication of the intensity of what's occurring, but also, the interaction that might be happening in that time. And then I will watch that audio or video, and then I will delete it after that because I've got that information.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find it really helpful with my own practice as well, doing the online consultations where the child doesn't see us.
Yeah, that's right, because it changes the dynamic.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and suddenly the parents become the one that is in charge and in control of the situation, which builds their confidence.
Yes.
And also the efficacy, and also the child listening to them.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
really helps.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the model that I use, and it's very effective.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen.
Thank
I
you.
will put the website to your link here somewhere.
That'll be
and
wonderful.
then in the description below. And thank you for
It's
having
been really
this
lovely having this conversation.
Here. Thank you.
Yeah, really enjoy talking behaviour with people in the field. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.